every year for the past decade, on March the 2nd, I've marked the murder in 2011 of Pakistan's Federal Minister for Minorities, Clement Shahbaz Bhatti. Today, as co-chair of Westminster's all-party parliamentary group on Pakistan minorities, I reiterate my profound admiration for one of the most compelling and outstanding, courageous political figures of recent years, and I associate the members of my parliamentary committee with my tribute to him today. Shahbaz's brutal assassination not only robbed Pakistan of a dedicated, honest, and able politician, it also threw into sharp relief the plight of Pakistan's minorities, whose fearless champion he had become. Bhatti gave his life trying to make a reality of the constitution of Pakistan's enlightened founding father, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who insisted that minorities should be given respect and treated as equal citizens. In 1947, at the time of partition, Muhammad Ali Jinnah gave a speech to the New Delhi Press Club, setting out the basis on which the new state of Pakistan was to be founded. In it, he forcefully defended the right of minorities to be protected, to have their beliefs respected. Minorities, he said, to whichever community they may belong, will be safeguarded. Their religion, faith, or belief will be secure. There will be no interference of any kind with their freedom of worship. They will have their protection with regard to their religion, faith, their life, and their culture. They will be in all respects, the citizens of Pakistan, without any distinction of caste and creed. But as we know from the treatment of Pakistan's cruelly treated Ahmadiyya community, the Christians, the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Buddhists, and other minorities, they still do not enjoy those rights. How a country treats its minorities is a litmus test. Pakistan simply needs to re-examine its own foundation principles to see that it is failing the minorities who face discrimination and outright persecution. The white in the flag of Pakistan is there to represent the country's minorities, but as those minorities suffer and Pakistan's law enforcement agencies and frightened leaders fail to speak out or to act justly, its flag has been dragged low, and for too many it's become streaked in the red of blood. 10 years after his murder, no one has been brought to justice for the killing of Shahbaz Bhatti. If a country can't bring to justice the killer of a government minister, what chance do the country's persecuted, beleaguered, and fleeing minorities have? Pakistan was founded on principles of equality and justice. What has been done to its own citizens, and done with impunity, makes a mockery of those high ideals. Failure to act jeopardizes the country's future, and it undermines the prospect of a diverse and respectful society. At the time of his appointment as a minister, Shahbaz Bhatti, like the murdered governor of Punjab Salman Taseer, singled out the country's blasphemy law as a principal instrument which had been used to vexatiously prosecute and harass minorities. Bhatti said it should be reformed, and he proposed a law to ban hate speech, to change the school curriculum, and to provide representation for minorities in government and parliament, and for the many social injustices faced by minorities to be corrected. I visited some of the so-called colonies in Lahore and in Islamabad, where Christian minorities are condemned to lives of squalor and servitude. I saw families living in hovels with dirt floors, in shacks without running water or electricity, little education or health, squalid and primitive conditions, all completely, I might add, off the United Kingdom's aid radar. Thousands upon thousands of people condemned to lives of destitution and misery. This leftover from the caste system is graphically illustrated by the case of a boy beaten and excluded from school for simply touching a water tap. Untouchability remains a curse. With parliamentary colleagues, I'm currently taking evidence in an inquiry into abductions of young girls, forced conversions, and forced marriages. An estimated 1,000 take place every year. Girls like the 12-year-old Arzu Raja. The murder of Shahbaz Bhatti demands our attention to cases such as hers and to such gross violations of human rights. He would expect us to raise our voices when we see two children forced to watch a lynch mob of 1,200 people burn alive their parents, or when we see children from minorities working in brick kilns, workshops, factories, or as domestic servants, or when we consider the story of a boy like Iqbal Masih, an incredibly brave 12-year-old Christian boy shot dead rebelling against enslavement, while countless others are ghettoized into squalid colonies and forced to clean latrines and sweep streets as jobs. Over the past decade, the United Kingdom has given Pakistan nearly £3 billion in UK aid, an average, that is, of £383,000 each and every single day. Shahbaz Bhatti's memory demands that we keep demanding to know how that money is being used to address the injustices against which he stood. He famously said that his stand would, his words, send a message of hope for the people living a life of disappointment, disillusionment, and despair, adding that his life was dedicated to the oppressed, the downtrodden, and the marginalized, and to the struggle for human equality, social justice, religious freedom, and the empowerment of religious minority communities. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of Bhatti's murder is that his countrymen overwhelmingly share those ideals. In a survey of Pakistan opinion, 90% cited religious extremism as the greatest threat to their great country. Shahbaz Bhatti was a brave advocate of reform of the country's blasphemy law, but he was more than that. He was a sacrificial and exemplary figure, and his life was given for the common good, for common humanity. All around the world, as we're all too acutely aware, an ideological hatred of difference is driving a systematic campaign of persecution, deportation, and exodus, degrading treatment, including sexual violence, enslavement, barbaric executions, and attempts to destroy history and culture that is not its own. And I think of the genocides against Uyghur and Rohingya Muslims and Christians and Yazidis in Iraq. Shahbaz Bhatti's life was given to the cause of common humanity, wherever and whichever minorities suffer or are persecuted. They should look to the story of Shahbaz Bhatti for inspiration. So, 10 years may have passed, but we have not and will not forget the sacrifice of Shahbaz Bhatti, who gave his life for his people, accepting political office even though he knew it would cost him his life. We owe it to him and to the minorities of Pakistan to redouble our own efforts to bring his noble ideals to fruition.